social media platforms be sued for causing eating disorders? Well, we have a new court case that is going to test that theory. And it's all based on a woman who, back when she was a freshman in high school, she was a swimming champion. But by her senior year, just within 4 years, she nearly passed out during swim practice because she was so weak. Okay. And basically within those 4 years she developed an eating disorder, and now she's suing Meta, who owns Instagram and Facebook, as well as TikTok. Okay.
Oh,
And
okay.
she's alleging that not the content, but the design of their platforms, basically their product, is what contributed to her becoming anorexic. Okay.
Okay.
So in the lawsuit, it states that this girl, freshman in high school, she's stuck at home because of the pandemic, and she started looking up things like at-home workouts, and she was doing it on social media, and she was trying to keep herself in shape for swimming when she obviously couldn't go to the pool to swim. She said that within weeks, her Instagram and her TikTok feeds were full of content that were not only promoting at-home workouts, they were promoting extreme type workouts and even disordered eating, which is usually when you put very strict rules or you have like a compliance of what you can eat. And a lot of times they talk about earning food, like you can only have food once you burn this many calories, stuff like that. That's all considered disordered eating. And she said that because of these innocent searches, that it turned into an avalanche, and it just began to overtake every thought that she had. Okay. Now, I don't know how often you hang out on Instagram or TikTok, but I know that if you watch one thing outside of your norm, okay, all of a sudden your feed has completely morphed to all be about that. Okay.
It's
Now,
wild. It's wild. Like my husband watched one thing and it was really kind of goofy slightly, and his the whole feed has just been completely taken over like that.
and it's hard to change it.
Mm.
Okay. Like once you start on this weird path, it's really hard to get off of it. And now, thankfully, my weird paths have been I somehow got stuck on the rabbit hole of brand new construction home inspections in Texas. I don't live in Texas. I'm not buying a brand new home there. I somehow got stuck on that. Something popped up. I don't remember if I was looking at like for I don't know what it was, but then for months, I'm talking like 6 months,
Yeah.
like every third video, like
I
because I'm
was
yeah.
I was on Repossessed, a tow truck driver who does repossessions on cars for like 2 weeks. Like, I think he's in like Virginia or something. I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Look at the reaction of the person whose car is getting towed. Like, for real, though, it takes so little for that to be the direction it goes.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I will say that a couple years back, I was on TikTok and I somehow got stuck in this cycle of what do they call it? The ASMR. It was the
mhm.
damn annoying fingertip flicking thing. Drove me banana pants. And
Hate it.
I, I almost tossed my phone out the window and said I just deleted TikTok. And then it was like a full 2 years before I would go back on it because even now, like when they do the
Oh, I hate it. My kid does it every once in a while. I'm like, no. I
uh,
broke her of it pretty quick.
So anyway, full circle back. The plaintiff, she is now 21.
Mm.
She is among 1,800 other plaintiffs that are suing these companies that basically are the social media platforms. Now, here's the thing. The plaintiffs include young adults recovering from mental health problems,
Yeah.
the parents of suicide victims, school districts dealing with phone addiction, local governments, and 29 state attorney generals. And they've
Man.
all joined together as this multi-district litigation, otherwise known as an MDL. Okay.
Okay.
Which is a type of lawsuit which consolidates similar complaints all around the country into one streamlined pre-trial proceedings. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
instead of having to clog the court system over basically the same complaint back to back to back to back, they're just going to group them all together and then they just all go through one proceeding instead of it taking forever. So this is a much more streamlined approach, and
Yeah.
this is all going to happen in federal court in the Northern District of California. Now, here's the thing. The plaintiffs in this case, these 1800, entities, they are alleging that the product created by the social media giants are not only addictive, but they're dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay? And that
Okay.
the defendants have, with the defendants being the social media companies, have relentlessly pursued a strategy of growth at all costs, recklessly ignoring the impact of their products on children's mental and physical health. Now, you may be wondering, well, why aren't they suing these creators? Okay. The creators and the content that they produce is going to fall under First Amendment rights, free speech, but the actual owners of these platforms, the Facebook,
Mm.
the Instagram, the TikTok, they all have algorithms that
Mhm.
decide what videos, what posts you see. And in order to keep you on their platform, if they know that you're engaging with blue teddy bears, they are going to inundate you with blue teddy bears to keep you engaging and staying on their platform. And so this lawsuit is basically stating that by doing so, and when it comes to certain content, it directly affected these people's mental health. I mean, we're talking about suicide victim. You know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah.
you went and you had bad thoughts one day and you looked at videos about other people having bad thoughts and possibly unaliving themselves, and then now you're inundated with all these unaliving videos, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that that would push somebody who is not mentally stable to then unalive.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like it is a machine and it wants to be fed and your
Yeah.
attention is exactly all that it wants. And it's nutty because it's meant to cycle you to get you in that loop and living in that moment.
Yeah.
So like that's it. It just feeds the machine and it creates an echo chamber. It creates the echo chamber half the time.
Yeah. And so some of the plaintiffs are the direct victims of the
Mhm.
intentional product designs that were made by the defendants, the social media platforms.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this whole MDL trial is expected to actually go to court next spring. And it really comes at a time when like social media is monopolizing more and more attention, especially from children and teenagers. Now, I found some great statistics that are also scary as all get out. Okay.
That's not surprising.
Yeah. So the average teenager in the US spends nearly 5 hours per day on social media. That stat was from 2023, so it's a little old. It may actually be more than that. Those who spend more than 3 hours on it daily have double the risk of depression and anxiety than those who spend less than 3 hours. Overall, 41% of teens with a high social media use rate, they list their mental health as poor or very poor. And that was the survey from American Psychological Association. Now, to give you an idea of why these platforms push these echo chambers and why you keep getting fed the same content, just in 2022 alone, children under the age of 17 delivered more than $11 billion in advertising revenue to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube.
Yeah.
So the reason that they do it has, yes, they're going to say that they want to keep you on their platform, but the reason they want to keep you on their platform is so they can advertise to you more. And it used to be like the golden spot was people that have disposable income. You're talking about people that are like 35 to 55.
Right.
But more and more advertisers are moving to a younger base. And so then they started really targeting like 18 to 35. And if going younger helped, why don't we go even a little bit more younger? Let's go under 18. So that's how we've morphed. here.
Well, and so the sad part is there's regulation about advertising to kids, but it's only through mainstream channels. There's not necessarily
Yes.
the same regulations don't apply when you're talking about things like YouTube and social media
Right.
apps.
You cannot make a Coca-Cola ad that targets children.
Right?
Okay. You
Yeah.
can't even play an advertisement for Coca-Cola if more than like 20% of the audience is going to be under the age of 18. Because we've talked about that before. It's part of the guidelines. But is it also not advertising that's not paid for by Coca-Cola if all of a sudden everybody you watch just happens to have a Coca-Cola on the screen with them?
Yeah.
You know? So
It's product placement.
there's always ways to do it. Now, I'm not saying Coca-Cola is the bad guy here, but think
No, it's
about
just the
all the brands that use influencer marketing. And one of the most effective ways of influencer marketing to work is just having the product in the picture while
Mhm,
you're doing the things. They don't
mhm.
even have to point at it and mention it. It just has to be on the screen.
And they don't have to disclose that it's been
They're
now they're
supposed
supposed
to,
to. They're
but
supposed to.
I don't think there is enough FCC auditors in the world to catch them all.
No.
Okay.
No.
Now, here's where it gets a little, when you really think about it, this gets scary. Okay.
Okay.
So, Dr. Austin, who is a professor of behavioral science at the Harvard School of Public Health, says this about children. Okay. They are being stalked by companies. They are stalked by these really disturbed values and beauty ideas. They are stalked by the phone in their hand. The
Mhm.
algorithm is finding them no matter what they're doing. And
Yeah.
this kind of goes into that if you make a search on Google for something, and then all of a sudden everything else instantly starts, and just think of like I Google the most randomness of things. And then boom, now I've got the most randomness on my For You page.
Oh my God, your
Okay.
ads must be absolutely bananas.
Seriously,
Oh,
they are. Which is really funny because I have mentioned multiple times that my kids are on a bean strike right now. I attempted to hide beans in multiple dinners and they were on a bean strike,
I
which is
love it.
really funny because for a couple months, I swear all advertisements that I saw on all websites were related to beans, which made me want to cook more beans. But my kids were on a bean strike. Like it was, I'm just saying it's real. I know this happens.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, kind of what I was mentioning before, whenever you sue a social media company, it's going to be difficult. Okay.
right. Yeah,
Because at the end of the day, most digital speech is protected by that First Amendment right. And social media platforms have long stated under the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which
right.
basically grants the host immunity from liability for hosting content. Now, there's some wiggle room there because they're supposed to have filters that catch, a underage, all the really bad things.
Right.
And so as long as they are alerted of those things and they remove it, they are considered immune. They can't be held responsible. Okay?
Okay.
But there are tons of things that can still be detrimental to people that don't fall under those categories.
Right.
Okay? Like
Yeah.
if you posted a video that showed you purposely injuring an animal, that's not only offensive, it's against the law, but then if
Yeah.
my child sees that and sees you laughing and saying how fun it was, that child may not know that that's not right, especially if they're 5, 6 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so there's lots of stuff that falls in that gray area that maybe they posted it as a joke or somebody posted it as a reaction video. Because you see that a lot right now where people are calling out other people's videos. And it's like, but aren't you making it worse by spreading the original video, even though you're reacting to how bad it is? You know what
Right.
I mean? It's tough. Okay. Now, I should put a little clarification here. So, the young lady that had an eating disorder, she specifically is not suing Instagram and TikTok's parent companies for hosting content that drove her to her eating disorder. She's alleging that the platforms are designed to maximize her engagement. And as a result, she was drawn deeper and deeper into pro anorexia content. So I've already set a Google alert on this so I can get updates since this won't, happen for a little while. But I truly believe that how this plays out in court can make a huge difference in how social media works.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Because
agree.
there's a couple different scenarios here. One, they're going to settle out of court. We're never going to hear another thing about it. Okay. And unfortunately, I think that's probably the number one option that will happen. Okay. Number two, they will they will find that these parent companies have to do a better job on their algorithm, that it's going to have to, pick up on different trends that could be dangerous. And it's funny because I just realized the other day that on TikTok, part of
Mhm.
their terms of service is that you cannot say that a product will give you weight loss. I see it all the time, but technically it's against their terms of service.
Okay.
That, different things of that nature. And then there was something else. The third option is that basically they'll find that the platform can't be held responsible and then nothing will change. So I don't know. What do you think is going to happen?
See, I have an issue. Well, I have an issue with the entire thing, but like settling out of court, I kind of see how that helps the people who are actually moving forward with the lawsuit. I really do. The long term implications of a settlement means business as usual. From someone, especially if it were my kid, I think I'd be more inclined. But don't all of them have to agree to the terms if they decide to settle it? So that's where it gets complicated because you've got people coming from a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, you've got attorney generals. And can an attorney general accept a settlement?
I don't know that they can. So I think
Yeah.
you kind of it has to move forward. So I don't know that a settlement's an option. But realistically, like if we're not doing anything to change, because I've already decided, and my kid kind of hates me for it, but I've decided social media is not a thing that's going to occur. Somehow she snuck this little one called Locket by me, which I'm not real
Mm,
pumped about, but it's much smaller in frame. You can only have 10 friends on the whole thing. And
interesting.
she asked dad. Dad said, cool. And I said,
No.
what?
Well, and so I've seen like skinny talk and all that stuff, and a lot of
Mhm.
it is very similar to the fear mongering that you see about different foods, and that, these things make you fat, these things are bad, don't
Right.
ever let these touch your mouth, that kind of foods. But at some point, though, I do think the content creators themselves have to be held accountable
Yeah,
because
because even though it's not necessarily their fault that it's being funneled at
show
them in the way that it is, the content they're creating is still extreme to promote negative messaging that creates the fun. If that content weren't there, there's nothing to funnel in. You know what I mean?
Well, and part of it too, I don't know if you know, she was on YouTube, she's on TikTok. I believe her name is Eugenia. She's mid 20s. I mean, unfortunately, she looks like a skeleton. She has no body fat whatsoever. There's lots of controversy around her content and about how it's basically promoting anorexia. But here's the thing,
Yeah.
she never once says the word anorexia. Okay. And so these algorithms, they know that the content is about anorexia, but the people that have anorexia, they're smart. They use code words. Like for
Yeah.
the longest time, you always, oh, I'm friends with Anna, as a way to say it, but not say it.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, this is where AI kind of goes wrong because you know that a human would know that these all things are related, whereas the AI may be a little too literal and be like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't about anorexia. They're all just friends with Anna. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like,
Yeah.
so let us know down below. Do you think that a social media platform can cause an eating disorder? Do you think that these media platforms need to be held responsible for their algorithms that lead you to deep holes that you may not be able to get out of or be strong enough to get out of? Let us know your thoughts down below.